going to work on multiplying decimals, and there are a few steps to multiplying decimals, so we're going to go over the steps first, and then we're going to do some practice problems. And I'm going to use lattice to do my multiplying. If you have learned in the past maybe a different way to do multiplying, if you don't like lattice, if you want to use the standard method, you could use, sometimes you can use repeated addition, but I'm going to use lattice just because that's how I learned and that's how I like to do it. So let's talk about the steps first, okay? So the first step that I like to say is that we always have to look to see how many decimal places. How many decimal places? Okay, and whenever I mean look to see how many decimal places, I mean if we had a problem that was 6 36 times 2/10, I would look to see how many decimal places are behind the decimal. And when you do that, you underline them. So here's the decimal, so I look behind. So here's one place. Here's another place. Well, I don't have anything left over here, so now I'm going to go over here. There's another decimal, and there's another place. So I have a total of 1, 2, 3 decimal places in this problem. Or let's say if I had a problem that was, I don't know, 476 hundredths times 4 8/10. Well, the first step that I need to do is look to see how many decimal places. So here, find my decimal, and I always look behind it. So there's 1 decimal place, 2 decimal places, 3 decimal places. Here's another decimal and another decimal place. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal places total. So once you find out how many decimal places there are first, then you can take your decimal place out. And I always tell my students to imagine that you are going into the paper and you're picking up the decimal places, and you're putting them somewhere else. So here I have 1, 2, 3 decimal places, and so I'm going to take them out. Even though I can't physically pick them up, I'm going to take them out. So I'm going to take out my decimal places, and I'm going to put them in a little holding bubble off to the side. So I've taken my decimal places, and I've put a little bubble off to the side to remind me how many decimal places I found. Same thing for here. I found 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal places, so I'm going to put it in a little holding bubble off to the side, okay? And then I can take my decimal place out. So once I have it removed over there, I can take my decimal place out. I can just wipe it right away. And now I have taken my decimal places and I've put them in my little holding bubble off to the side. So now let's talk about step 2. So my second step, now that I have looked to see how many decimal places I had in my problem, my second step, which I kind of already started on the second step a little bit, my second step is to take the decimal out, take it out, which we did right here. We took it out, we put it in our little holding bubble, and then multiply normally. So what's nice about decimal multiplication is that once you take your decimal out and you put it in that little holding bubble, all you have to do is just multiply just like you used to do in 4th grade, normally, completely. So technically, once you have, your decimal taken out, let me get rid of these here. You can just do 636 times 2, which I'm going to use lattice to do that because, like I said, I like to use lattice. If you do not, you don't have to. But I've noticed that a lot of you have really liked to use lattice. We've noticed that. So let's see, 636 times 2. Now, I've got my number written. Each one of my numbers needs its own place to be. So I need a column for my 6. I need a column for my 3. And now my 6 has its own place. But I don't need to split it down the side over here because I just have one number on the side. So I don't really need to split it because my 2 already has its own place. So now the next thing, I like to put a little multiplication symbol right there to remind myself that I'm multiplying this way. And now I'm going to split my boxes. I'm going to draw my diagonal lines. So, got my lattice box drawn. Now I'm just going to multiply as normal. Multiply normally. So 6 times 2. Well, I know that's 12. Let's see, 3 times 2. That would be 6. And 6 times 2, again, we already said that was 12. So now I've done my lattice. Now I'm just going to drop them on down this way. So dropping down my 2. 1 plus 6 is 7. 0 plus 2 is 2. And then I have my 1 here. So we've got our answer. Now I always tell my students to rewrite your answer. So I rewrite my 1, 2, 7, 2. 1, 2, 7, 2. And now I've multiplied as normal. Next we're going to talk about our third step. Okay, now I'm going to talk about step number 3, because like I said, there are 3 steps to multiplying decimals. So we've done the first one, look to see how many decimal places, then take them out and put them in our little holding bubble. We've done the second one, which was multiply as normal, which we did. Now the third step is put the decimal back in. Put decimal back in. Because we don't want to be thieves. So if we steal something, which we stole the decimal place away, we got to return it. We got to give it back. So that is why I always rewrite my amount of decimal places in my little holding bubble. Because it's like a mental reminder that, oh, okay, I took out 3 places. That means I have to put back 3 places. Because whatever we take, we got to give back. So we got our number rewritten here. And I know that now I need to take my amount of decimal places and I need to put it back in. So I always start at the back here, and I jump however many places I have waiting to be put back in my bubble. So I always start at the back and I jump. I need to jump 3 places. So 1 jump, 2 jumps, 3 jumps. So that means my decimal is going to be right there. Okay, so now I always make my students rewrite it again. So that is going to be 1 decimal 2 7 2, and that is my final answer, 1 and 272 thousandths. So that is the process of multiplying decimals. So now let's do some example problems. Okay, so let's do some example problems. Now I rewrote the steps over here for us, that way we can check them off as we go. So again, look to see how many decimal places, take the decimal out, put it in the little bubble, and then multiply normally. And then lastly, we can't be a thief, we got to put the decimal places back in that we took. So let's start off kind of easy. Let's do example 1, and let's do a whole number first, just to start out easily. So 86 and 4 tenths times 2. Let's just start simple, okay? So first step, look to see how many decimal places. That's why I really like to always have a second color. You could use a highlighter, you could use a colored pencil. I really like to have a second color, that way I can look to see how many decimal places and I can mark them. So here I find my decimal and I look behind. So I've got 1 decimal place here. I don't even have a decimal over here, so that means I just have 1 decimal place. So I'm going to take it out and I'm going to put it in my little holding bubble up here, 1 decimal place. So I'm going to take it out. Okay, done. Check. Okay, check. Done. Now, take it out. We did that. And multiply. So now I've got 864 times 2. 864. Okay, I'm going to draw my lattice. 864 times 2. Remember, each number needs to have its own place to stay. 8 has its own. 6 has its own, 4 has its own. And now I'm going to split up my boxes. And add my little multiplication symbol to remind myself that I multiplied this way. So, 4 times 2, well that's easy, I know that is 8. 6 times 2, 12. 8 times 2, 16. Okay, multiply. And I'm going to drop them on down, so I've got 8, 2, 7, and 1. Okay, done. Second step, finished. Third step, put the decimal back in. So I always make my students rewrite their answer. 1728, 1728. Okay, now we gotta put it back. So remember, we gotta take what we stole and we gotta put it back in here. Okay, so I stole 1, so that means I gotta put 1 back. So I always start back here, do however many jumps it says, and that is where my decimal is gonna end up. So I'm gonna rewrite it again, 172.8, and that should be our final answer, 172 and 8/10. Let's try another one. All right, let's try a little bit harder one. So this is example 2. Okay, let's do 45 hundredths times 2 3/10. All right, so there's our next problem. First step, look to see how many places. So I need to find my decimal and I need to look. Okay, here's 1 place, 2 places behind the decimal. Here's my other decimal. There's another place. So I have 1, 2, 3 places. And remember, I'm going to stick them in my holding bubble. Okay, that's where they went. Okay, so first step, done. Check. Second step, take out the decimal and multiply. So I'm going to take out the decimal, which we did. We took out the decimal. We put them waiting in our holding bubble. And now it says to multiply. So now that I took my decimal out, I have 45 times 23. So I'm going to draw my lattice. 45, 23. And remember, each number needs their own little place to be. So that way 4 has its own spot, 5 has its own spot. I'm going to split it this way because 2 needs its own spot and 3 needs its own spot. Okay, so now I'm going to add my little multiplication symbol, and now I'm going to split my boxes. All right, boxes are split. Okay, so 5 times 2, I know that's 10. 5 times 3, 15. 4 times 2, I know that is 8. 4 times 3, 12. Okay, now I'm going to drop them on down. 5, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 10. Oh, look, this one's a little tricky. You got to carry your 1. Now I have 0 plus 1 is 1. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite my answer, 1035. So now step 2 is finished. All right, so step 3, put the decimals back. Remember, whatever we take, we got to put right back because we are not thieves. So I'm going to write it 1, 0, 3, 5. Okay, I need to jump 3 times. Let's see, 1, 2, 3 jumps. So my decimal is going to be right there. Notice I'm always starting at the back when I jump. So I'm always jumping this way. I always start at the back. So my decimal is right here. So I have 1 and 35 thousandths. That should be my final answer. We're going to do one more problem, and then you should know how to multiply decimals. Let's do one more. This is going to kind of be like a challenge problem. So this is going to be example 3. Okay, so here we go. Let's do 3 and 41 hundredths times 262 thousandths. Okay, so we've got thousandths now, multiplying by something with the hundredths. So first step, look to see how many decimal places. So I'm going to use my other color. Well, here's my decimal. I'm going to look behind. Here's 1 decimal place, 2 decimal places. Here's my decimal. I'm looking behind. 3 decimal places, 4 decimal places, 5 decimal places this time. Okay, so now, first step, complete. Okay, step 2, take the decimal out and multiply. So I'm going to take my decimal out there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 decimal places. So I'm going to leave it in my little holding bubble up here. And now I'm going to take my decimal out. That is why I really like to work these out on a whiteboard. That way I can actually physically take my decimal out by rubbing it away. All right? And it says take the decimal out and multiply. So now that I've taken my decimal out, I've got 341 times 262. So that's what I'm going to make my lattice for. Now, this is 3-digit by 3-digit lattice, so you got to be extra careful with how you draw your lines, how you draw your diagonals to make sure you don't get all wonky and then get all confused. So, 3, 4, 1. Okay, notice I spaced them out a little bit so I have room to make my boxes. 3, 4, 1. And down the side I've got 262. 262. Okay, now I'm going to fill in the rest of my box here. Okay, each number needs its own place to be, so I'm going to split it up. 3 has its own place, 4 has its own place, 1 has its own place. Now I need to do the same thing over here. 2 has its own place, 6 has its own, 2 has its own. All right, so I'm going to add my little multiplication symbol to remind myself I'm multiplying this way, and now I'm going to split my boxes. Now this is where you can get easily messed up. Split, split, and it's okay if it's not quite perfect, but I mean, as long as you keep them straight and organized. Split, split, split. All right, here we go. 1 times 2, well that's easy, I know that's 2. 1 times 6, that is 6. 1 times 2, again, 2. Now notice I went down first, but you can go over first. You can go, I mean it really doesn't matter as long as you get all the boxes filled in. So let's go this way next, 4 times 2. Well I know 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 6, 24. 4 times 2, that is 8 again. Okay, next one, 3 times 2, that is 6. 3 times 6, that is 18. And 3 times 2 is 6 again. All right, so I've multiplied now. I'm going to drop them on down. So dropping down my 2. Let's see, 6 plus 8. Let's see, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So I'm going to put my 4 down here and I'm going to carry my 1 to the next column. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So again, put my 3 down below, carry to the next column. So 8 plus 1 is 9, 10, 11. Let's see. 11 plus 8 more, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So I'm going to put my 9 here. I'm going to carry my 1. Let's see, 6, 7, 8. And I've got nothing there, so I could put it if I want to, but I don't really need it. So now, multiply as normal. Done. All right, I'm going to make, again, always make my students rewrite the problem or rewrite their answer. Let's see, 0, 8, 9, 3, 4, 2. That's a big one. 0, 8, 9, 3, 4, 2. All right, and remember, we're not thieves here, so whatever we take out, we got to put it right back. So we're going to do step number 3. Let's see, we got to do 5 jumps this time, so I'll always start at the back. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right there. So I'm going to rewrite my final answer. 0 and, let's see, 8, 9, 3, 4, 2. And that one is really hard to read. Let's see, this is tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, 100,000ths. So that's 0 and 89,342 100,000ths. But you don't really have to know that in 5th grade. You guys just have to go to the thousands place. But this is just the challenge problem, remember? Because once you learn those steps, you can really multiply any kind of decimal. because all you have to do, take those decimals out, multiply as normal, put them right back in. If you have questions, please ask your teacher, because we don't want to see you struggle. If you're still confused, we don't want to leave you behind. So please, you just have to ask, okay? So, get to work.